Have you ever thought that the ego, what you always believed to be yourself, actually never existed? One of the greatest psychologists in the West encountered a truth from the East that shook his entire theory. And instead of denying it, he bowed his head to learn. 1939. In a small room in the Swiss mountains, Carl Gustav Jung, the master of psychoanalysis, was writing diary entries that would shock the entire world of psychology. After decades of healing thousands of patients, interpreting millions of dreams, he never expected that the greatest answer to human suffering came from an ancient doctrine on the other side of the world. Buddhism's anatta. How could a man who spent his life building theories around the ego be convinced by a philosophy that completely denied the ego? Carl Jung once believed that the ego, the conscious self, was the center of psychological integrity. Every journey of inner growth, he believed, revolved around recognizing, talking to, and reconciling the ego with the disowned unconscious. But then he encountered a paradox. Buddhism does not say to heal the ego. It says to let it go completely. And this is not a philosophical negation, but a practical liberation. So what made Carl Jung, a rigorous scientist, bow to Eastern wisdom? And what can the combination of these two seemingly contradictory streams of thought open up for our own inner journey? Jung happened to read a German translation of the Majjhima Nikaya, and after only a few pages he stopped, trembled, then sighed. My God, I am reading about myself, but from a tradition I do not understand. Jung was famous for the concepts of the collective unconscious and archetype symbols that appear in the human mind across cultures. But for him, the ego was still the center of his navigation. Yet when he encountered the teachings of the five aggregates and no self in Buddhism, he felt as if there was a strange mirror reflecting everything he had ever believed. It was hard to believe a man who had spent his life studying dreams and the inner self was awakened by a concept that completely denied the concept of I am me. Buddhism teaches the ego is just a temporary combination of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, all of which are impermanent. Jung began to ask, do modern pains, from depression, anxiety, feelings of emptiness, all stem from our trying to protect an unreal ego? And if so, then is all modern psychotherapy going in the wrong direction? Instead of trying to strengthen the ego, Buddhism teaches letting go of the ego. This is not an act of escape, but the most courageous act, daring to step out of the invisible cage called, who am I? And the amazing thing is, Jung did not see this as a contradiction. He saw the two streams of thought as compatible. So what did he do to bridge the Western ego with the Eastern egolessness? When he first sat down to meditate under the guidance of a Japanese Zen master, Jung could not concentrate. I felt as if I were in the middle of an invisible battle where the enemy was my own thoughts, he said. In psychoanalysis, Jung had asserted that confronting the shadow, the disowned unconscious, was the way to unify the self. But in meditation, he did not engage in dialogue with the shadow. He watched it disappear, just sat still. No analysis, no control, just breathed and watched each thought come and go. And then he realized the ego cannot control the mind, because the ego is also just a thought. So I am not the thinker, but the observer of thoughts. A small statement, but for Jung it was revolutionary. Meanwhile, the symbols he had seen in his patients' dreams, like the mandala or the circle of light, suddenly appeared clearly in Tibetan Buddhist scriptures. This stunned him. It could not have been a coincidence. He wrote in his diary, "Meditation is not a method, it is a door. Once opened, all psychological theory becomes too small." A famous psychoanalyst revered throughout Europe now began to be silent to listen to himself. Jung began to incorporate meditation into therapy. He no longer asked his patients to analyze their dreams, but taught them to sit still and watch the mind as a river. The result, a long-time depressed patient once said, "I no longer try to find a way to be happy, I just learned to stop resisting everything." Jung's encounter with Buddhism was no longer academic. It was a journey of life, a bow of science to divine intuition, but this combination created a new method of therapy, unprecedented in history. We will explore that method in the next section, when the non-self becomes the healing medicine. A patient once asked, "If I am no longer this self, then who am I?" And Jung replied, "You are the one asking that question." While the West still focuses on strengthening the self as the center of self-confidence and personal success, Jung went against the flow. He combined analytical therapy with mindfulness meditation from Buddhism, no longer forcing people to become, but helping them realize that they already are. Jung's therapy sessions became more like meditation sessions. He was no longer a healer, but a guide leading others back to themselves. A client once said, after 3 months of the new type of therapy, "I don't need anyone to validate me anymore, I just need to accept the silence." Within modern society is increasingly chaotic. Stress, depression, anxiety disorders are on the rise. And the big question is, can the sufferings of our time not be cured by medicine, but by awareness? Jung saw this clearly. He wrote, "Science can explain the mind, but only consciousness can reach the heart of healing." He began to use a new concept. Healing through non-self sounds paradoxical, but it is the key. When people learn not to identify with their thoughts, not to resist their emotions, not to cling to their self-image, a miracle happens. The wound no longer defeats them, they begin to live as themselves. No longer controlled by the past or social pressure, Jung said, "Healing does not come from changing yourself, but from seeing yourself as you are without judgment." A person who once lived with an inferiority complex shared, "I no longer try to love myself. I simply stop hating myself." In an age where everyone is caught up in becoming more smarter, more beautiful, more successful, Carl Jung and the Buddha offer a different path. Not to be better than anyone else, but to shed the layers of falsehood. Not to conquer the world, but to return to ourselves. So, what path will get us there? The next section will reveal 3 practical steps that combine psychology and meditation to help you reach true healing. If you've ever felt exhausted from trying to be someone else, it's time to learn how to return to yourself. No more trying to control everything, no longer living to prove it. It is about freeing the mind from deep within. Jung called this being friends with the shadow. That is facing the parts of ourselves that we always want to hide. Self-doubt, selfishness, anger, guilt. Buddhism teaches, don't eliminate negative emotions, just don't identify with them. For example, when you get angry, don't say, "I am a hot-tempered person." Say, "Anger is present in me." The moment you separate yourself from your emotions, you are no longer controlled by them. You are not your emotions, you are the one observing those emotions. Jung recommends recording dreams, emotions, memories every day. No need to analyze, just write them down. This is a way to get in touch with the unconscious, like a Buddhist gets in touch with the storehouse consciousness. Then combine it with 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation every morning. Sit up straight. Close your eyes. Utstay Tansen. Focus on your breathing. Whenever your mind wanders, just come back to your breathing. This is the most profound way to cleanse your consciousness. Mini Hook 3. Just 10 minutes a day. No mantras, no rituals, just I am breathing and I am present. Jung said the ego wants to control everything, but the soul just wants to be free. Buddhism calls it detachment, the art of letting go of what no longer serves you. Let go of expectations, let go of being right, let go of your idealized image of yourself. Instead, you choose to be authentic, an imperfect version but free. You don't need to become a better version. You just need to stop pretending to be someone you're not. You don't need to study all of Jung's books or read all of the Buddhist scriptures. Just experience one step at a time and you will feel the healing. You may have thought, I need to understand more, I need to do better, I need to heal before I deserve peace. But the truth is, peace is not a reward for perfection. It is your original nature, just forgotten amid the noise of the ego. Jung taught us to understand ourselves. Buddha taught us to let go. One helped us go within. One helped us escape from the ego, but both bring us to the center of consciousness, where we are no longer driven by hurt, desire, or fear. When you live in silence, compassion, and wisdom, you no longer need success to prove your worth. You become the light. No need to search for more. You don't need to be someone. Just take off the masks you've never been. If this video touches you, don't just keep it in your heart. Share it because someone might need this light in a dark room. Hit like so the algorithm can bring this message to more people. Subscribe if you want to continue your journey of healing and awakening with me, and leave a comment. I'm learning to observe without judgment or just a full stop, to let me know you are there for real. And remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the silence behind them. This is a journey that no one can walk for you, but you are not alone.